That's interesting then, because what makes it worth it? What makes you kind of step back into it?
Yeah, it's because, you know, everything had its reason. When I, like, for instance, I say I wanted to experiment with music. Mm-hmm. You can't experiment with music if you're in a serious money-making band.
Right, sure.
You know? So I didn't want to be in a serious money-making band. I wanted to experiment with music, where nobody tells me you can't do this, okay? So I created Michael Schenker Group, where I was able to do that, you know, even though that was yet not perfect, but it was at least my own group, and I had some sort of freedom. Peter Mensch sent me straight back to Aerosmith to jam with them. And I went like, wow, I'm going in circles, you know? I just came down, he's sending me back up. But then in '90, eventually, I was free, you know? And so, what was the question? And then,
well, what made you, because now you signed with Nuclear Blast, so you've always had maybe one foot in it.
So it was a slow, you know, getting in, and then realizing that even those 10 years with an acoustic with one leg in, it was still a period of development, you know, to get slowly in. So the middle years took effect since 2008, but in a step-by-step. So actually I was 11 years old again in 2008 and developed in light speed back to the place that I left when I was 23. So basically I was, when the Michael Schenker Fest, after the DVD, that's when the record companies approached me, you know, because they saw the potential of that, and especially after I said, well, what should happen next? Oh, maybe Michael Schenker Fest in the studio. And I had a funny concept with it, you know, like with big table and big feast on the thing with the studio behind us and having a fest in the studio, you know, that's how it started. But I kept saying, you know, my representative said, like, via my representative, Nuclear Blast was the most attractive company, because they were also German and they were, you know, very professional and they had a good reputation, etc. And legally it was easier to deal with. And but I kept saying no. I was not ready. I thought, you know, and I went no. I kept saying, Michael Voss called me up. Come on, Michael. Everybody kind of put me, like, you know. And then eventually, my representative said, like, you know, I think it's time. I think you can actually do this. You should maybe do this. And I kind of looked at it, and I said, if he says it, at least I've got the blessing of my representative. But, you know, I'm not the same Michael Schenker anymore. Anyway, so what I used to hide behind, etc., was not really necessary anymore, because it's like you are a horse that wants to run, but you have a wall around you, you know. So I didn't need that anymore. And plus, Michael Schenker Fest was a much bigger undertaking that needed that kind of support, like Nuclear Blast. So I ended up, you know, signing with them, and I'm very happy today I did. And funny thing is, we both ended up at the same event, receiving an award. Me for the Axeman Award from Hard Rock Hell, and Nuclear Blast, the best label. And I just signed with them, which is unbelievable.
Finally, then, there's one bit that we've touched upon, but which I want to talk about, because you mentioned you didn't really realize the influence you had earlier in your career. So when somebody like Kirk Hammett, who you mentioned, says that to you, and he went on to form Metallica, one of the biggest bands of all time. So what does that do to you when people come up to you and say, well, you made me play guitar, or you...
I understand the logic behind it, because it's a link. It's like, you know, Jeff Beck did the same thing to me, and I do this to you, and you will do it to somebody else. We are in that link, as simple as that, you know. But it depends on who you are. If you are a musician, if your dream is, I want to be rich and famous, and so I follow a trend to get the piece of the pie, they probably get affected differently if somebody says something like, oh, you influenced me, or stuff like that. Yeah, because there is maybe the agenda is different. For me, it was, I didn't want to be famous. I didn't want to be on stage either. I didn't really wanted any of those things. But when all of a sudden you get awards, you go like, wow, I never expected anything like this. This is unbelievable, you know. And then, you know, again, like when Kirk, I met him in '97. We were, he was one of, including myself, 10 of the most influential guitarists, American Guitar magazine, Guitar or something. Mm-hmm. And Peter Mensch, because I lived with him for 2 years, and he not then he told me, but later he told me that I think when I was touring with Def Leppard, that I was Kirk's Santa Claus. But anyway, it just took a long time until Kirk finally, you know, maybe he must have expressed it so often that Eddie Trunk was maybe saying to him, look, I help you putting something together. So Eddie Trunk from that metal show in New York, I don't know if you know about it, he arranged for Kirk and myself, it's a TV show, to jam together, you know. And so we met just before the show, and we did the interview and stuff like this, and we went on stage and we jammed together and so on. And then a few days later he came to our concert and jammed with us, you know. And so he was a fan and a friend, and played in the biggest band of the world, and so biggest band in the world. And so I said, hey Kirk, you want to play on my record? And he went for it, you know. And actually the management even paid for the flight. Okay. He wanted to record in Hawaii, and the management paid for Michael Foss's, because, you know, and paid for his flight over there. He sent pictures back, and it was Kirk with the biggest screen, a smile in his face, and with the guitar and the basketball hat, and he looked like a 20-year-old teenager with his casual outfit, you know, Hawaii, sun and warm. And so it was funny, you know, so I'm really happy he did that, and I'm sure he had a great time.
Finally then, because you mentioned that you don't care about money and those kind of things, but when for you will this album, Resurrection, be a success? When will this album for you be a success? Or
oh, it's already. It's already, because I love that combination of, you know, you know, instead of having 3 songs each, you know, I wanted to have some songs where all the voices, you know, mix up together. And Michael Voss, he helped me enormously with that. And then overnight, he said, Michael, look what I've got. I wrote some lyrics and some melody to that composition that you made, and he played it. I went like, this is fantastic, this is perfect, you know, for the whole band to sing. And he did the same. We did the same with Last Supper, and then we had different combinations of vocals singing together. I sang with Gary and with Doogie, "Goes Away," and then Robin was singing with somebody, backing vocals, and then the band was singing "Warrior" and so on. So for me, it's a success, you know. For me, it's about celebration. For me, it's about, I'm celebrating the era of handmade rock, and I celebrate the Michael Schenker Fest, and I celebrate being together with the original singers from the 80s, and maybe one day we're going to have the ultimate Michael Schenker Fest, where we have, you know, in 2019, it's going to be 50 years of recording for Klaus Meine and myself. And the Scorpions box shouldn't have been released when it was, because there was no Klaus Meine there when they started. The 16 was dance music, it was hit parade. So it started with the Lonesome Crow, and that's is due in 1990, and the release date was a different one, but that's when we were in the recording studio when I was 15. And so maybe Klaus sings with me one of these days, when I'm alone, you know, in search of peace of mind. And maybe even Phil Mock will come on and sing a few songs, you know, of Strangers in the Night, because it's the 40th anniversary of Strangers in the Night, and in 2018. And I'm sure he's very busy making something out of that, because I gave him the name back for free, you know. So he's the proud owner of a brand name now, and he can, you know, design and have his fun with that. And so, you know, who knows that it keeps going to close, you know, to complete the cycle. That's how I started the first recording with Klaus Meine, singing as a singer. And maybe if we are fortunate, we can have a nice, you know, closing the cycle experience.
Is that important to you? That because obviously you've played and you know the guys well, but to kind of close that cycle to make it.
Not really, not necessarily. I kind of believe that what needs to happen will happen.
Okay.
And I'm not the creator of the universe, and I'm not the designer, so I leave that up to the Almighty. What should be, what is around the next corner? But you know, you have the God-given intelligence and stuff like that, and so you can be creative and have visions and go for it, but don't insist on it because the external world is unpredictable. So if you insist on your results, you're in a bad place. But when it flows and it looks like it's just like everybody's enjoying it. That's something that to be happy about.
All right, Michael, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.